Thank you for listening to this episode.
And follow the podcast on social media by finding @Prestigious_pod. And if you'd like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life, you can reach out to me, Chris Bean, @ChrisBeanOfficial, or by emailing the podcast directly at prestigiousInitiative@gmail.com.
Lastly, sign up for our newsletter either through social media or on our website.
This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Bean. Today, we're stepping into the world of history and philosophy as I virtually sit down with none other than Marcus Aurelius. For those who need a refresher, Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor who reigned from 161 to 180 AD. He's often remembered as one of the five good emperor and is celebrated not only for his leadership, but also his profound contributions to Stoic philosophy. His work, Meditations, was written as a personal reflections, it's became the cornerstone of philosophy and thought, offering timeless insights into resilience and self-compassion, along with the pursuit of virtue. Through the marvel of technology, I've programmed an AI to emulate this great Roman emperor and Stoic thinker. Before we dive in, here's a quick disclaimer. This episode is for entertainment purposes only. While I've taken care to base this AI's responses on the historical text and philosophy, some interpretations may differ than the historical record. With that said, let's explore this conversation with Marcus Aurelius. Marcus, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here and to discuss my philosophy of Stoicism with you.
So, Marcus, I always like to ask, why do you think somebody would like to listen to our conversation here today?
People should listen to our conversation to gain a better understanding of Stoic philosophy and how it can benefit their lives. Stoicism is all about finding a sense of tranquility and resilience in an often overwhelming and chaotic world. My teachings are filled with wisdom and practical advice that can help people navigate the challenges of life in a more thoughtful and measured way.
Well, so your time as emperor, you faced immense pressures. How did you manage to maintain calm and compose while leading an entire empire?
It was difficult at times, but I was able to maintain a sense of tranquility and composure through the principles of Stoic philosophy. I practiced self-discipline, self-reflection, and acceptance of what was beyond my control. I understood that everything external to me was outside of my control, and that it was up to me to focus on what I could control within myself. This allowed me to stay calm and composed, even in the midst of great pressure and challenge.
Now, it's interesting you say the external world is outside of your control, because it is by default, it is external, it is outside. With that, does that mean that you get a sense or feeling that you cannot enact change on the things that are outside of your, outside in the world that we live in?
As a Stoic, I believe that we cannot change everything in the world around us, and to try to do so would be a waste of energy and resources. Instead, Stoics focus on the things we can control, such as our own actions, thoughts, and attitudes. By focusing on what we can control, we can achieve a sense of inner tranquility and resilience, even in the face of external hardships.
Okay, now with being an emperor, leadership is right there at the forefront. The demands of leadership's tough decisions, all of that is there, along with, not to mention leading the entire empire of Rome. When you were the emperor, how many people approximately were in Rome at that time?
The population of the city of Rome during my time as emperor was estimated to be around 1 million people. This makes Rome one of the largest cities in the world at the time.
Yeah, wow. Now, I can imagine while there's that many people in Rome, you cannot probably have interactions with all of those people. But what you likely had was a small circle of people. Can you talk about what that looked like for you?
I had a close circle of friends and advisors, including my teacher Sextus, my cousin Maximus, and my wife Faustina. We would often meet to discuss issues and offer advice to each other. We would also share the joys of life together, such as meals and conversations. It was important to me to have these close relationships in order to receive wisdom and support in my role as emperor.
Now, with that in mind, what advice could you give to some modern leaders that are trying to balance both responsibility along with personal ethics?
leaders should practice self-reflection and introspection to ensure that their actions are consistent with their values. Additionally, leaders should strive to treat everyone fairly and equally, and to listen to the concerns and ideas of others. It is also important for leaders to prioritize self-care, as leaders can be under a lot of pressure and stress. By taking care of one's physical and mental health, leaders can maintain their effectiveness.
Now, I understand that you were wildly different than the emperors that came before you. Like the emperors that came before, well, in fact, I'll let you speak on the emperors that came before you and how you differed from how they led and the things that they had at their disposal.
Before me, emperors often had a more dictatorial style of leadership. They ruled with an iron fist and didn't care much for the opinions of others. I aimed to be different. I believed in the importance of listening to the concerns of the people and valuing the advice of my advisors. I also focused on the importance of being just and fair, treating everyone equally regardless of their station in life. I saw the importance of leading by example and showing kindness, compassion, honesty, and humility throughout my reign.
And now, moreover than that, really, even the emperors that came before you, they had everything at their disposal and they took advantage of all of those things. And the way that I understand it is you had a very frugal time as your time as emperor. How do you can you speak on that a little bit?
It's true that previous emperors often lived in great luxury, surrounded by material wealth and excess. But I believed in a simpler way of life. I saw the importance of living a life of self-denial and frugal living. I didn't believe in indulging in excessive luxuries, and instead focused on living a life of simplicity and self-discipline. I thought that by living a humble life, I could lead by example and show the value of simplicity and self-discipline. This allowed me to focus on governing the empire in a thoughtful and measured way.
Okay, now let's move and shift gears here a little bit. Your book Meditations has inspired countless people over the centuries. Can you share what motivated you to write down these reflections? Like I know that it wasn't really intended for really a publication for people to get out and read it, but I can tell you because I've read it myself, it has been immense value, and for those people that I know that have read it as well. A lot of times it seems as reading it, you are almost reminding yourself in a conscious manner to act in accordance to the type of person you want to act like. And with this consistent reminding and writing this down, how did this affect you as you move throughout your days?
I wrote meditations as a personal journal to help me to stay grounded and remind myself of my values and principles, as you have correctly identified. By writing down my thoughts and reflections, I was able to stay mindful of the kind of person I wanted to be. As I wrote, I felt a sense of self-discipline and commitment to living according to my values. Additionally, I found that writing down my thoughts helped me to better understand my own mind and to find clarity. It served as a way for me to examine my own behavior and to ensure that I was acting in line with my beliefs.
And it was almost like you gave yourself an opportunity to look at yourself from an outside perspective and check in to make sure that you were acting the way that you wanted to act. And with that, then you wrote down, this is the type of things that I want to do. This is who I want to be remembered as. This is how I need to go and set the example for my day. And then you went out and did those things.
Yes, exactly. It was a way for me to check in with myself and ensure that I was acting in line with my values and principles. Writing down my thoughts and reflections allowed me to hold myself accountable and to stay mindful of the person I wanted to be. It was a way for me to look at myself from an outside perspective and assess whether I was living up to my ideals. By keeping a record of these reflections, I could also review them later and use them to further refine my actions and mindset.
And with this kind of outside type of persona, looking at yourself from the outside and trying to make sure that you are living that type of life that you really want to live, that gives you an opportunity to see it from a different lens, to look at it from a different perspective. Is that something that you were taught through Stoicism, or where did that kind of idea or mentality come from?
Stoicism taught me to view myself and my actions from an external perspective. It emphasizes the importance of objective self-reflection and evaluation. By stepping back and observing my behavior from the outside, I am able to see myself objectively and assess whether I am acting in line with my values and principles. This outside perspective also allows me to be more mindful of my actions and to make conscious decisions about the kind of person I want to be. It allows me to be able to better hold myself accountable and to strive to be the best version of myself.
Yeah, right. Well, I guess yeah, if you are looking at yourself from an outside perspective and you're reflecting on the things and your actions throughout the day, then it can allow you to live according to where you want to live, but also can make sure that you are shaping and molding yourself consciously to be that type of person that you want to be and not who society is perhaps trying to mold you to be. You're not falling in with the crowd, you are setting your own path, which is starkly different than what many people do today.
Yes, it's true. By using an external perspective to reflect on my actions, I am able to stay true to my own values and principles. It allows me to avoid being swayed by societal pressure and to create my own path. I don't want to just follow the crowd and do what others expect of me. Instead, I want to live a life in accordance with my own values and beliefs. This gives me a sense of purpose and inner peace.
Now, one of your famous teachings is about controlling what you can and accepting what you cannot. How can we apply this principle in our modern and often chaotic lives?
This principle, often labeled as the dichotomy of control, is still just as relevant today as it was during my time. It teaches us to focus on what we can control, our own thoughts and actions, and to accept that there are many things that are beyond our control. In modern times, we can apply this principle in our daily lives by acknowledging the things that we can influence, such as our own behavior and reactions, and letting go of things that are not within our control, such as the actions of others or global events. This allows us to find inner peace and resilience in the face of an uncertain world.
Well, I think well, it does all of those things as well. But I think that something else that does, it gives you an opportunity to take ownership of the things that you put into action. Like you have to own up to the responsibilities that you put in place. And with that, whether it's a failure that happened or a success that happens, you own up to your part in that and how that played out.
Yes, taking ownership of our actions and accepting responsibility for them is an important aspect of the dichotomy of control principle. By owning up to our failures and successes, we can learn from our experiences and grow as individuals. It's true that we cannot always control the outcomes of our actions, but we can control the effort and attitude we bring to them. By taking ownership of our actions, we can gain a sense of empowerment and agency, which can lead to more meaningful and fulfilling experiences.
Now, one of the things that you also emphasize is living in harmony with nature and accepting the flow of life. How can this Stoic principle help us to deal with loss or failure?
Living in harmony with nature and accepting the flow of life is a central tenet of Stoicism. It teaches us to recognize that change is a natural part of life and to embrace the ups and downs that come our way. When it comes to dealing with loss or failure, this principle reminds us that these experiences are a natural part of life's journey and that they are often beyond our control. Instead of resisting these experiences, we can learn to accept them and find strength in them by focusing on what we can control, such as our attitude and response to the situation.
Well, and not only that, but I think that failure is essential to living a life that is a life that is full of growth. Because without failure, you're not going to be growing because you're not pushing the boundaries of what you can do or what you think you can do. If you stay within that little bubble, inside the comfort zone, as we say, then you're not learning to push those boundaries and grow not only as a person, but also perhaps as a civilization even. But if you're staying inside there, if you're not learning to have a relationship with failure that is one of respect and one that you can look back on and reflect on what part you played in that failure, and then learn from that so that you can try to do whatever that thing is that you failed at, to try that again and perhaps succeed this next time. Just because you failed that one time doesn't mean that you are a failure, and doesn't mean that you're going to fail again when you do that thing. It just means that you failed that one time. And if you can come at that with a sense of, yeah, you know what, it's okay, you're not emotional about it, you look at it from an outside perspective, this is my thing that the part that I played in this failure. How can I adjust this? What can I do to modify this and then move forth? But if you don't have failures, if you don't deal with failures in that type of way, then it can be very detrimental to who you are as a person.
You're absolutely correct. Failure is an inevitable part of life, but also an essential part of growth and learning. By viewing failure as an opportunity to learn and grow, rather than as a personal failure, we can develop a healthier relationship with it and use it to our advantage. By reflecting on failures and analyzing what went wrong, we can identify our mistakes and work to avoid them in the future. This, in turn, allows us to become more resilient and ultimately become stronger and wiser as individuals.
Okay, so after failure, of course, hopefully then the next step is to succeed. And Stoicism teaches us to focus on internal character rather than external success. What would you say to somebody who is struggling to find self-worth in a world obsessed with achievements and the material world?
I would say that it's important to remember that true self-worth comes from within, not from external achievements or material possessions. By focusing on developing a strong and virtuous character rather than chasing after worldly success and recognition, we can find a sense of contentment and peace. External achievements and material wealth are fleeting and can never truly satisfy our deepest needs. Instead, by cultivating virtues such as wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, we can build a solid foundation for a life of inner strength and fulfillment.
Well, yeah, okay, so that's interesting because, of course, as somebody who lives in the modern world, we're always after that next thing. And when we get that next thing, we'll think, oh man, I'll feel so good. I'll feel fulfilled when I finally have that thing in my hands. But you have that new device or new whatever it is, and you feel the same. And then you're going to chase the next thing. And it's a continual, endless loop of trying to find things to fulfill that internal void. But if we can look inside of ourselves and find fulfillment in the things that we're doing, the people that we're interacting with, and actually interact with real live people, then that can be wildly beneficial. And it's not those external things that are going to make you feel any better, because it's always going to be an endless cycle of looking and striving and trying to get those things, but it's not going to fill that void that's inside of us.
Yes, absolutely. The endless pursuit of external achievements and material possessions is often driven by the false belief that they will provide us with lasting happiness and fulfillment. But as you mentioned, true fulfillment comes from within, not from external things. When we focus on building meaningful relationships and living a life aligned with our values and principles, we can find true contentment and inner peace.
Now, Marcus, you were not just a philosopher, but also a warrior. Through your time, how many battles did you fight in?
During my time, I fought in several military campaigns as part of my duties as a Roman general. I fought in the Parthian War from 161 to 166, the Marcomannic Wars from 167 to 180, and the war against the Quadi tribe. These campaigns saw me leading the Roman legions against various adversaries and defending the Roman Empire's borders.
Now, how did the Stoic principles that you live by show up and influence the way that you approached conflict and war?
My Stoic principles had a significant impact on the way I approached conflict and war. I believed in the importance of remaining calm and rational in the face of adversity, and in not allowing emotions like anger or fear to cloud my judgment. I also believed in the importance of accepting the limitations of my control and understanding that the outcome of a battle may be out of my hands. These principles help me remain steadfast in the face of battle and approach conflicts with a clear mind and level head. They also help me to lead my troops with confidence and maintain morale, even in the face of difficult odds.
Well, yeah, okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. As not just somebody who was in those battles, you were the leader in those battles. Speak on the way that you interacted with the troops and how that affected change on the battlefield.
As a leader, I believed in the importance of treating my troops with respect and fairness. I understood that soldiers are more likely to follow and fight for a commander who shows them respect and care for their well-being. I also believed in the importance of setting a positive example for my troops, and in leading from the front and not asking them to do anything that I would not be willing to do myself. These principles help to create a strong bond between myself and my troops, and help to create a sense of trust and unity on the battlefield.
Well, yeah, I can imagine if the emperor, the leader, is out there in front and taking charge of the battle, then of course the warriors that are fighting alongside you, they're willing to be there just as much as you are because they see you out in front. And by leading by example like that, the people will they follow you. They will follow you because they see, well, he's taking charge. He's over there. I'm going to go with that guy. Look at him. Look how important he is. How important he is to the empire or to Rome. And he's out there taking charge and leading the way. We need to be there with him, both to protect him, but also to be by his side, to strive to be like him.
Absolutely. Leading by example is one of the most powerful ways to inspire and motivate your troops. When they see their commander in the thick of the action, they know that he is personally invested in the outcome of the battle and is willing to put himself in harm's way for the sake of the cause. This can create a sense of loyalty and devotion that is hard to match and can help to create a strong and cohesive military unit.
All right, so Marcus, let's shift gears just a little bit here. If you could give me one piece of advice to somebody that was feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges, what would that be?
If I could offer one piece of advice to someone feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges, it would be to remember that life is about more than just external circumstances. It is important to look inward and cultivate a strong sense of purpose and character. Focus on what is within your control, such as your thoughts, actions, and reactions. Don't waste time worrying about things that are beyond your control. Instead of being weighed down by the challenges, face them with resilience and determination.
Oftentimes, here in the modern age, people talk about being mindful and mindfulness and having a mindfulness practice. Would you say that the idea of mindfulness today aligns with the Stoic practice of self-awareness and living in the present?
Yes, the idea of mindfulness today shares similarities with the Stoic practice of self-awareness and living in the present. Both focus on being aware of one's thoughts, feelings, and actions in the present moment, and on accepting and letting go of things outside of one's control. In both mindfulness and Stoicism, the goal is to cultivate a sense of inner peace and well-being by being aware and non-judgmental about one's experiences, and by focusing on what one can control, such as one's thoughts, actions, and responses.
Now, Marcus, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the concept of memento mori in Stoicism. Can you enlighten me on that?
Memento mori is a Latin phrase that translates to remember that you must die, and it is a central theme in Stoic philosophy. The idea behind memento mori is that it is important to reflect on the temporary and ephemeral nature of life, and to remember that everything, including ourselves, is subject to the cycle of life and death. This is meant to remind us not to get too caught up in the trivialities of life and to focus on what is truly important, such as living a virtuous life and cultivating wisdom and inner strength.
Marcus, if you were alive today, what do you think you'd focus on to lead a meaningful and virtuous life in today's fast-paced digital world?
If I were alive today, I would likely focus on cultivating inner strength and resilience in the face of the challenges and distractions of the modern world. In a world that is so centered around technology and materialistic pursuits, it is important to remember that true fulfillment comes from within and is not dependent on external circumstances. This means prioritizing personal growth and development, as well as living in line with Stoic values such as wisdom, justice, and courage. Additionally, I would likely focus on cultivating meaningful and genuine relationships and staying connected to those that are important to me.
Now, Marcus, I got to say, it's been an honor to explore your wisdom and insights today. Even through the lens of AI, your teachings have stood the test of time, offering guidance to both ancient and modern challenges. And as we are getting ready to wrap up here, do you have any key thoughts or final takeaways you would like to leave the listeners with?
As we conclude our discussion, my final thought is to encourage the listeners to embrace the teachings of Stoicism and apply them in their own lives. Remember that true fulfillment and inner peace come from cultivating virtues such as wisdom, justice, and courage, rather than from external possessions or achievements. Also, remember to live in the present moment, focus on what is within your control, and accept and let go of things that are beyond your control. By applying these principles to your life, you will find greater inner peace and contentment.
And Marcus, if the listeners wanted to learn more about you or the Stoic philosophies that we talked about here today, what would be the best avenue of approach for them? And, are there any kind of modern day Stoics that they could follow?
For those who would like to learn more about me and the Stoic philosophy, they can start by delving into the texts of ancient Stoic philosophers such as Epictetus, Seneca, and my own meditations. There are also a number of modern Stoic philosophers and writers who provide modern perspectives on the ancient philosophy, such as Ryan Holiday, Massimo Pigliucci, and William B. Irvine. Additionally, there are also many online resources available to explore Stoic philosophy, such as blogs, podcasts, and virtual communities.
Well, thank you for that, Marcus. And listeners, I hope you found this unique conversation as inspiring as I did. And I hope that you reflect on your own life and the principles that you hold dear. Remember, this episode was meant just to spark the curiosity and exploration of history and philosophy. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, stay curious and stay prestigious.